Thank you for taking the time out and being here today. CCS Learning Academy is the professional training division of the CCS Global Tech, a 28 years old full service IT consulting firm. We help business to build their teams with skill tech professionals depending on their project needs. We also help them by upskilling, reskilling their workforce on the latest technology trends, professional development, and leadership training. We offer a wide range of innovative technology solutions, training, and career placements. My name is Rajbir Singh, manager at CCS Learning Academy, and I have been in technology and professional training sector for over a decade. I work with students, organizations, and leaders for their professional developments. We will be running a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. So we have enabled our Ask a Question feature. It is on the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions, just put them in there. Today, we have well-respected subject matter expert, trainer, and a speaker who is Microsoft SQL Server business intelligence expert with more than 13 years of experience. He is also specialized in TSQL programming, end-to-end business intelligence framework, data virtualizations, Azure Migrations, and Snowflake Warehouses. So please welcome Swapnil Shah. I will hand over to Swapnil now. Swapnil, you can take it up from here.
Hello everyone, good morning. This is Swapnil Shah. So I'm going to be the presenter for today's session, as Rajbir mentioned. Just to kind of quickly go through a bit of background about me, I have about 13 years of experience working in various database projects, specializing in TSQL programming, entire full BI stack, data visualizations, Azure cloud computing, Azure migrations, as well as Snowflake warehouses. So I'm currently working as a delivery head for US operations on various different data projects, and I hold different Microsoft certifications such as MCSA, MCSE, and MCT. So moving forward, we're going to be talking today about Snowflake. What is Snowflake? Why is Snowflake very, most sorted technology currently out in the market? Why it is very commonly used for various different data industries, data companies. We'll be walking through different editions of Snowflake. What are the various different Snowflake offerings and which edition should you be picking and choosing depending upon your business requirements. We're going to be also talking about the pricing model for Snowflake. How does the Snowflake charges their customers based on the services that you have used? We'll be discussing quickly about the architecture, multi 3-tier architecture for Snowflake and how the query is actually executed against the Snowflake environment, how the query is processed, and what is the workflow of the query execution lifecycle. Last but not the least, we'll be talking about a small little demo of how to create a quick database into Snowflake environment, how to simply create a simple table and work around with the data in that table. And we'll be just running through some advanced features of Snowflake as per se the business requirement that you can pick and choose. And finally, we'll be walking through some certifications that you can take to boost up your career. So moving forward, first thing first, like what is Snowflake, right? So Snowflake is a fully managed software as a service that provides a single platform for data warehousing. You can use it for data lakes, can also be used for data engineering purposes, data science, data application development, and we can securely share the data and consume that data in real time. So it's technically nothing but online place or maybe a cloud data warehousing solution where we can actually host the entire enterprise level data warehouse onto Snowflake cloud. So Snowflake is, as said, is a cloud data warehouse that can store and analyze huge amount of organizational data all in one place as a single source of truth. It can seamlessly and automatically scale up and scale down its compute resources, so it is completely serverless, which can be used to integrate and analyze data. So we can run virtually any number of workloads across many users at the same time without really worrying about the resource contention. And Snowflake also automatically creates compute cluster. We call it as virtual warehouses that provides the compute infrastructure. And there is a special feature in Snowflake called multi-clustering. Depending upon the workload, automatically the Snowflake is going to spin up an additional cluster which can take care of the additional workload without degrading the user experience. A very important feature of Snowflake. And it automatically starts the load balancing between the multiple clusters, so we have to never worry about the downtime or the slow performance. And because Snowflake can scale on demand, in context to the capacity and performance as needed, the data engineering team has to no longer worry about the capacity planning. They don't have to do any kind of planning exercises, because the Snowflake is very well adaptable. Depending upon the demand for your compute and storage resources, it will automatically allocate those resources for your workload. Everything happens at runtime, so it can commission and decommission those resources. So we don't have to really worry about the spikes in our business. As per the workload, as per the requirement, the Snowflake is going to take care of your resource allocation. So also there are very advanced functionalities of Snowflake, some of which includes time travel, fail safe. We have secure data sharing in Snowflake. We can perform data cloning. We can apply streams and tasks. That makes it one of the most sorted technology in today's complex data industry. So a lot of companies I have seen are migrating their on-premise data warehouses, on-premise data store onto Snowflake, primarily because of the performance, security, and the dynamic way of allocating the resources. So, being that said, assuming that this is the Snowflake platform, so we can actually host enterprise level data warehouse onto the Snowflake environment. And when we create a Snowflake account, we have to specify which cloud provider that we want to use. It could either be a GCP, Google Cloud Provider, AWS, or Azure. So these cloud providers essentially is going to hold the backend infrastructure, the backend compute and the storage infrastructure for the Snowflake software as a service. And essentially we can actually ingest data from various different data sources such as OLTP databases, operational databases connected to various different live front-end applications. We can extract that transactional data. We may have some enterprise level applications, spread across the organization. We may have third-party applications, generating the data. We may have, log data. We may have web, social media data, or Internet of Things data. All different type of data, any volume of data can be very well ingested from that data stores and can be loaded onto the Snowflake tables in Snowflake environment. We can use various different cloud-based data ingestion and orchestration tools. It could be ADF, Azure Data Factory. We can also use Snowpipes for real-time data loading processing, event-based loading. And then that all data can be very well ingested onto the Snowflake environment. We have about more than 40 to 45 different data source connectors that we can use in Snowflake. So Snowflake has wide variety of connectors that can connect to multiple different on-prem and on-cloud data sources. And we can ingest that data into the Snowflake environment. Once the data comes onto the Snowflake environment, that data can be work around, it can be transformed, it can be used by various different internal teams, data engineering team. It can be used for data science, data analysts, different personas, different job personas. We can have data lakes. We can, as I said, build data warehouses. We can use for data science purposes. And ultimately that data which you're going to be storing into the data warehouse in Snowflake environment can be discharged for the reporting layer. We can use Power BI, Tableau, or any kind of semantic layer to get that data from the Snowflake environment and create multiple different reports out of it. Operational reports. It could be executive dashboards. We can use that data for whatever data monetization depending upon your business policies. We can perform real-time data analytics. So as said, your Snowflake is going to act as a platform where you're going to be hosting the data warehouse, and all the backend infrastructure, all the management capabilities, all the high availability solutions, everything is done, is taken care by Snowflake. All that you have to just worry about is developing a data warehouse or migrating data from on-prem to Snowflake cloud, while the management aspect of that data warehouse is taken care by Snowflake. Essentially speaking, under the hood, these are any of your cloud service provider that you can pick and choose from. So it's very fast, it is very efficient, it is highly secured, and it is much more versatile in context to the performance and the capabilities, advanced capabilities. All right. So being that said, wanted to quickly run through various different Snowflake editions. So Snowflake offers, essentially speaking, three main editions that a user can pick and choose from. So we have standard, we have enterprise, and business critical. So standard is standard is the lowest level of um, edition that a user can basically go through. So it provides introductory level edition, and it has all the standard features available. But if you need more features as per say your requirements, if you are having a huge amount of data needs and all, then you can obviously also go for enterprise. The next step is going to be enterprise, which has some more features such as multi-clustering. You can have secure views. You can perform data share onto enterprise, which is essentially not possible in standard. And if you need more features, you can still go for higher levels of data protection. You can go for business critical. In that case, you have more security, specifically data encryption. You also have more performance. You can have more virtual warehouses that you can provision for executing your workloads. And even if the business critical is not enough for you, we have something called VPS, that's one for virtual private Snowflake, also called business critical plus. So this is the highest level of security edition that you have, and potentially only limited number of institutions might go for it. So if you are running a very data sensitive company such as financial company or healthcare, or maybe if you're running some kind of a security kind of an agency where your data is very much important, and if you want to highly secure that data to the highest level, then you can go for virtual private Snowflake, where you have to call the Snowflake and set up your environment. It's going to be in a completely isolated environment onto the Snowflake cloud. So again, these are just the list of features that are available in each of these editions of Snowflake. So so for standard editions, we have various different features, such as we have complete SQL data warehouses with dedicated warehouses. Now again, let's not confuse with data warehouse and virtual warehouse. Data warehouse is what we know. It holds the actual data in the form of dimensions and the fact table, versus the virtual warehouse provides the compute infrastructure for executing the workloads. That's just a Snowflake terminology. And here in standard, we are guaranteed a very high uptime of our compute resources. On the top of that, we also have automatic data encryption. We have time travel feature, which is a very classic feature where we can go back in time and see what changes has been done on a particular table in a Snowflake environment. Where in standard, you just get up to 1 day of time travel in the past. On the top of that, we also have secure data share, where we can share data across multiple Snowflake platforms. You can also share data to a customer who doesn't have a Snowflake account. We call it to be as a managed account or reader account. And you also have 24/7 Premier support when it comes to standard edition. So it's pretty standard. If you have basic needs for data, if you don't need too much of concurrency, if you don't have too much of performance requirements, then obviously standard is the best edition that you can pick and choose from. The next level is going to be enterprise, as we spoke. So here we have all the features of standard. What are the standard features offer? Plus, on the top of that, we have something called multi-clustering, where we can use auto scaling capability of multi-cluster warehouses. What it means is that if you have a virtual warehouse provision, and if you have multiple different users trying to execute a workload, and if that virtual warehouse is not capable of executing those many workloads in parallel, it will spin up another virtual warehouse cluster, and Snowflake is going to automatically balance the load between multiple clusters in real time. So the user does not experience lower performance. They don't even know where which virtual warehouse is being executing your queries. So that is one of the classic feature available in enterprise. Plus, on the top of that, we can have time travel of up to 90 days, which is a max that a Snowflake can provide. And we can create materialized views, which are nothing but like index views in any RDBMS. We can have secure views. We can perform search optimization and various advanced layer security features. Now, if even enterprise, if that is not enough, then we can go for the next level, which is business critical. And here we have all the features that enterprise provide. Plus, on the top of that, we have some additional, data security features such as data encryption everywhere. We have extended support, and the most important would be database failover and disaster recovery. So that is business critical. And then, as said, the last edition here is the highest level of edition, which is virtual private Snowflake, also called business critical. And here, obviously, we have to, it's not directly available when you open a new account on the Snowflake website. If you want to set up a virtual private Snowflake, then you have to explicitly call the customer support, and they need to understand your business requirements, and they have to set up the environment for you. And obviously, all the servers, all the data that you're going to be storing onto the Snowflake with virtual private Snowflake will be in a completely separate, isolated environment. So again, depending upon the type of data, depending upon the volume of data, depending upon your performance requirements, reporting requirements, and obviously depending upon your budget, you will have to pick and choose the appropriate edition that you can go for before you start migrating your data from on-prem to Snowflake environment. So now, when we are working in a Snowflake environment, it is very important for us to understand how the pricing model works. How does the Snowflake charges their customers for using their Snowflake service, and how do we calculate the cost of using Snowflake, right? So since we already know different editions of the Snowflake, let's quickly run through the pricing model. So Snowflake has decoupled storage from compute. What it means is that you're gonna be charged separately for storage and you're gonna be charged separately for compute. It's not coupled, it is completely decoupled. So depending upon the amount of storage and compute you use, you're gonna be charged separately for that. So in general, we would pay for what we would need, what we would use, and this gives us a scalable amount of storage as well as a huge amount of compute resources at very affordable price tag. And one thing to understand that the storage and the compute charges that are gonna be that would be the part of your bill depends on which platform you have chosen. Maybe it could be GCP, Azure, or AWS, and what region where you have provisioned your infrastructure, right? So let's take an example. Let's consider the storage cost first, where we are using the cloud provider's infrastructure. So here we are charged monthly storage fees, and that is based on the average storage space that you're going to be using per month. So depending upon, let's say if I'm using 100 GB, 200 GB of storage space on a specific month, so depending upon the charges defined by the Snowflake, I'm going to be charged only for that amount of storage that I'm going to be using. On the other hand, if I'm gonna be using compute, obviously for me to execute the workloads, I will be using a lot of compute infrastructure, virtual warehouses. So these virtual warehouses are built by seconds, every second, but it is built at a minimum of 1 minute, and it all depends on the size of your virtual warehouse. So virtual warehouse comes with different sizes. We have extra small, medium, large, and the more the size, the more the credits is going to consume. The obviously the faster the performance that you may have. So it's all variable, but again, it's a very clear pricing model. There is very much of transparency. Depending upon how much compute and how much of storage you use, you're just going to be charged accordingly, and everything is well drafted as per say your consumption. So here, one thing which is very important to understand is we will not be charged directly in dollars or any other currency. We'll have to first purchase something called Snowflake credits. So obviously we'll have to exchange the dollars or euros or whatever the currency in regards to the Snowflake credit, and then we will then be consuming those Snowflake credit as a part of my storage consumption, or it could be based on my compute consumption. So obviously we can go on the website and we can pre-buy the credits that can be applied to my account, and as you use, as per you go, pay as you go, those credits will be consumed, right? So again, this is just an estimate of how much you would be charged in total, in general, for a standard company for different editions. So again, for standard, it would be roughly around $2.70 per credit. As I said, per credit, and one credit is technically you have to get it by exchanging your currency, right? Enterprise is going to be roughly about $4 a credit, business critical about $5.50, and for virtual private is going to be more expensive. It all depends on your customized private isolated virtual storage space and compute infrastructure. So we'll have to contact the Snowflake customer care for that. And again, these are just the numbers. This number keeps on changing. Probably next month, couple of months down the line, it could be more or less, depending upon how Snowflake would model their pricing. And as said, these pricing is not static. Like, if there are two customers using the same standard edition, doesn't mean that they would be charged the same dollars per credit. Um, it depends on which cloud provider that you are using. Again, as I said, you have three different choices: AWS, GCP, or Azure. Which region you are trying to provision your cloud services? Every region has different data centers. So, the costing is all, variable depending upon which cloud provider, what region, and all that thing. But again, it is just a rough estimate of how much you're going to be charged per credit, right? So next, one very important thing for us to understand is the size of the virtual warehouse. As said, virtual warehouse is nothing but something that is going to provide you the compute infrastructure for you to be able to execute your workloads in the Snowflake environment. It's nothing but your processing capabilities, right? So we have different virtual warehouses of various different sizes. It comes in extra small, which would consume one Snowflake credit if it is active for 1 hour. If that is not enough, if you have complex workloads, then we need to scale up our virtual warehouses. Maybe the next step is going to be small, where you have two different servers that classifies to be as one cluster. It's going to consume 2 credits per hour, and you can always scale up depending upon, as I said, the complexity of your workload. The next step would be medium, which is going to consume 4 credits. Large is going to be 8 credits. It's just in the multiple of 2. And you just have to basically understand the complexity of your workload. You need to, as a trial test, you need to see how much is the performance, what is your performance requirement as per say the user or the customer, and then you have to pick and choose the appropriate virtual warehouse that would suit your needs, right? And then yes, the billing is done every second with a minimum of 1 minute, right? So it is very important to pick and choose the appropriate size, because the more you go up, and if you don't need that, you're going to be wasting a lot of money. If you have a smaller size, considering the fact that you have bigger workload, the performance is going to be degraded. The user is going to be experiencing slower performance. So again, it's a trial and error method, and that's how you're going to picking up the appropriate size of the virtual warehouse. Plus, we can also set up auto scale up and auto scale out feature. Again, that's beyond the scope of this webinar, but dynamically we can actually scale up or scale out your virtual warehouses depending upon the complexity and the volume of your workloads. So Snowflake pricing, as discussed about, Snowflake has decoupled storage and compute. Specifically, when it comes to storage, we have two different options that we can pick and choose from. We can either go for on-demand storage. That means we would pay only for what we are going to be using. And on the other side, we have something called predefined, also called capacity storage, meaning here we pay upfront for the predefined storage capacity, irrespective of how much you're going to be using. So let's run a quick scenario. Let's imagine that I want to migrate the data from my on-premise data store and put it onto the onto the Snowflake cloud. and as per my capacity planning, looks like I would have, or I would need 100 GB of data to be stored onto the Snowflake environment. Now, if I pick and choose the on-demand way of storing the data, on-demand is going to charge me $40 per TB. So if I decide to store 100 GB, which is 10% of 1 TB, I would be paying 10% of $40, which is $4 every month to store 100 GB of data, right? Which may not be too expensive. Versus if I go for scenario number two, if I decide to go for capacity storage, which is on-demand storage, Snowflake is going to charge me $23 to store 1 TB of data, irrespective of how much you use. So even if I store 1 GB, 2 GB, or 100 GB, up to 1 TB, it will still gonna be charged $23. Looks like this is gonna be a lot more cheaper if I decide to go with scenario one, which is 100 GB. On the flip side, now if my storage requirements are higher, if I wanna store, let's say for example, 800 GB of data onto the Snowflake cloud, again, as per se the calculation, 800 GB is 80% of 1 TB, 80% of $40 is going to be $32. Here, since it is fixed, predefined storage capacity, I would still be paying only $23 even for 800 GB, right? Up to 1 TB. So what I'm trying to say here is like, it all depends on how much of your storage needs are. If you are unsure of how much of storage that you would need, it's better to go for on demand, because you are still doing the capacity planning. You are not very clear on how much of your storage you might be using. But if you're pretty sure, okay, this is what I have, this is the final number, ballpark number, and if you are planning to store huge amount of data where the variations are not much, then it's always better to go for capacity storage, right? So that's what it says. In the case of, as we just talked about it, we should go for on-demand storage to start with. And once you are sure about the usage, once you have that ballpark number, then you might want to switch on to capacity storage. Now, this is one of the unique feature provided by Snowflake. I have not seen this feature being offered by any other cloud provider, let it be Azure or AWS. So also when it comes to compute, they have much more flexibility in the credits asset, which is built every second with a minimum of 1 minute. So this stands out when it comes to Snowflake environment. All right, so moving forward, just wanted to quickly run through the Snowflake architecture. So Snowflake works on 3-tier multi-layer architecture. We have 3 different layers in Snowflake. So every query, every workload that you're going to be executing in the Snowflake environment has to pass through these 3 layers. First one is the cloud service layer. Then we have this query processing layer, and the bottommost layer is going to be the storage layer. So starting from the storage layer, so basically storage layer is going to store all your business data. It is important to understand that all the business data stored by the Snowflake is very well compressed and is stored in the columnar fashion in the respective cloud provider of your choice that you have chosen while creating a Snowflake account. And all that data is actually stored in the blob format. Blob is nothing but binary large object format, which is very fast for data retrieval and storage. So that gives a special advantage for Snowflake, where you have extremely fast performance irrespective of the amount of data that you plan to store, because all that data is very well compressed. It can achieve more than 80 to 90% of compression ratio, and it is columnar storage. Specifically, it uses Parquet files or ORC files in the backend blob object to actually store that data. Parquet is Apache Parquet file, which is for big data analytics workload. So that's the storage, where the final resting place for your data. Then we have is query processing. Now, as said, this query processing is going to provide the compute infrastructure for you to be able to execute the workloads. We have virtual warehouses, as we spoke about. These virtual warehouses comes with different sizes, extra small, small, medium, large, and depending upon the complexity and the volume of your workloads, you can pick and choose the appropriate virtual warehouse that is going to power the execution of your workload. One very important thing for us to understand is these virtual warehouses works on MPP architecture, massively parallel processing architecture, which can have multiple, every cluster can have multiple nodes. Every node is a virtual machine you could think of. And when you have a multiple nodes, you may have a driver node, you may have a worker node, and the driver node essentially manages all the worker node. The job of the driver node is to break down the workload or the tasks into various different jobs, and finally allocate those tasks to the worker node and get the things done from the worker node, consolidate the results and push it back to the user. It's very, very fast in context to the amount of data. It doesn't really matter how much of data that you're trying to process. Snowflake virtual warehouses are very, very fast since it works on MPP architecture. It is very similar to Apache Spark architecture, right? So hence it is called, it's a muscle of the system, right? And then the outermost layer here is a cloud services layer. This is the layer where we can actually use various different high-level cloud services, such as we can actually provision your services, we can manage your databases, you can actually create users and accounts, you can set up various different advanced features of Snowflake, such as you have zero copy cloning, you may have data share, or whatever you do on the Snow site on the front end portal is classified to be as cloud services. Hence, it is called brain of the system. You can apply security and access control in the cloud services. And cloud services also has various different caches, such as you could think of it's like a query output cache, query metadata cache. So any query that you execute in the Snowflake, the output of that query is actually retained into the query data cache for up to 24 hours. And if some other user tries to execute the same query again, within a matter of 24 hours, provided that the data in the underlying database does not change, then you can actually, Snowflake is going to pick that data from the cache and throw it to the user, improving the performance. So all those caches are actually implemented in the cloud services layer, which again on the top of that drastically improves the performance of your Snowflake environment. So again, this is just for us to understand the high level architecture. It's a 3-layer architecture for Snowflake, and every query, every workload that you are going to execute on the Snowflake environment has to go through these 3 layers, depending upon the type of the workload, one step at a time, from cloud services to query processing and finally to the storage, where it can have access to the actual business data. All right, so next would be virtual warehouse, as we already spoke. These are the virtual warehouses are called virtual compute instances, which are also called servers. You can pretty much say anything of that. Ultimately, it is used to provide the compute infrastructure for you to execute and process the queries for your data. And these virtual warehouses can come with different sizes, right? The smallest size is extra small, which would consume 1 credit per 1 Snowflake credit. If it is active for 1 hour, we can go from small, medium, large, and it just keeps on scaling up. So if our queries are not very complicated, then we can use the smallest size. But for more complex queries over the time, they would consume a lot of resources, and the user would then have to wait for longer time. So in that case, we may have to increase the size of the virtual warehouse. We can go up, and the next step would be, as I said, small, medium, which is going to simply double the credits that you're going to be using for that particular virtual warehouse. And one thing, as what we know, is the larger the size of the virtual warehouse, the more expensive it's going to be, and everything is built in credits. So we have to be pretty much careful what would be our optimal size of the warehouse that we plan to use. Now, one of the classic feature, as I just told briefly, in Snowflake is multi-clustering. So multi-clustering is a very important feature, optimization feature in Snowflake, which will automatically replicate the cluster on demand basis at runtime. So let's assume that you have a warehouse of size small. Size small comes with 2 different nodes, 2 different VMs. Obviously, it's going to consume 2 credits per hour. If this small warehouse is active for about an hour, it's going to consume 2 credits. Now, assuming that you have different workloads coming up, so that workload will be executed by this virtual warehouse. Now, as more and more workloads are being executed, this virtual warehouse may not be capable of executing all the workloads at the same time, right? So at some point in time, some of the workloads will start queuing up, right? So this virtual warehouse is executing 3 workloads right now, but these 2 workloads are currently in the queue. That would drastically drop down the performance. The user may have to wait longer. So in that case, what we can do is we can set up a multi-clustering, and we can say auto clustering. There are different options, economy and standard, depending upon the requirements. So what happens in this case is, if the multi-clustering auto scaling policy is enabled, your Snowflake will automatically replicate the primary cluster, maybe in multi-clusters, like one more cluster or 2 clusters. So we have to specify the min and the max clusters. And the idea here is, those queries that were queued need not be queued anymore, because I would then allocate these queries or these workloads to some other cluster. So it drastically improves the performance. So the user doesn't have to wait to execute their workload. Obviously, you're going to be charged more, because now this is going to consume 2 credits per hour. At the same time, this cluster or this warehouse is also going to be consuming 2 credits per hour. Your costing is going to be higher, but the good thing is you can handle more concurrent workloads, right? So there could be some time of the day where your business has too much of demand. Let's say if you're running an online retail store like Amazon, probably maybe in the holiday seasons or maybe over the weekends, you may have more traffic, right? So in that case, you don't have to pre-provision your resources. You can just set up multi-clustering, and as you get the traffic, as the demand goes up, automatically your Snowflake is going to allocate more compute resources to process those workload without affecting the performance. That's a classic feature of Snowflake. It is also available in other cloud computing platform, but here it works very seamlessly, and you won't be charged much. It's just gonna be like depending upon the clusters that you use. And another thing that I want to mention, once the workload goes down after X amount of minutes or after an hour or two, then Snowflake automatically decommissions those clusters. So you don't need not pay continuously for those extra multi-clusters. Automatically it manages the clusters, it commissions and decommissions based on the dynamicity of your workloads, right? All right, so being that said, wanted to give a quick demo of Snowflake. So Snowflake is, as said, software as a service platform. So here's how the Snowflake look like. This is a Snow site. You could think of it's nothing but an online portal from where you can actually access the Snowflake environment. For you to create an account in Snowflake, you can just go to snowflake.com. All that you can just go to here is snowflake.com. This is the corporate website for the Snowflake. Now here you can actually create an account. You can simply say, start for free, and then you just have to plug in your information, your first name, last name, company, and all. And the moment you hit on the continue button, it's gonna send you an email to verify. Once you verify, it's gonna navigate it to a specific portal where you have to plug in your username and the password, and you get 30-day trial free with $400 credit, with which you can actually play around and use multiple different Snowflake services. And once you log in, this is how the Snowflake portal is going to look like, right? This is called Snow Site, SIT Snow Site, and this is a management portal of Snowflake where you can actually create databases, you can actually create AML applications, you can perform admin activities, you can actually go for the cost management. These are your virtual warehouses that I was talking about, right? Which provides the compute infrastructure. You can assign different security permissions, create users and roles, so on and so forth, right? So I'm going to create a small database, and we can just write some basic queries against that database to see how it works. Now the experience here is very similar to any other relational databases. If you have worked on SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, MySQL, the syntaxes are very, very similar, maybe with few customization changes, but Overall, if you know any programming language is pretty, or any SQL programming language of any dialect, shouldn't be a problem for you to actually work against Snowflake. And it uses SQL as its own dialect to work around with the data in the tables. So all that first we have to do is, again, there are many features. We don't have enough time to walk through all the features, but the main thing is worksheet. If you are a Snowflake developer, most of your time will be spent in worksheets. They do call it as worksheet, which is nothing but like a session. Here is where you have to write the queries. You can create these worksheets of different types with SQL or Python. Maybe you can also write the Python code in your worksheet. I'm gonna go for SQL as of now. This is how it looks like. It's an editor kind of a thing where we can actually write the queries. And here I don't have any database. These are my sample databases provided by Snowflake. So all that I can do is I can simply create a database, something like this. So create database, maybe I can just say database name, right? All that you have to do is just select what you want to execute and hit Control Enter, which is going to be executed. Now here I already have a compute resource, which is nothing but a virtual warehouse attached to that worksheet. If you don't have this virtual warehouse, then you're going to be getting an error because obviously you don't have the compute infrastructure. So in that case, what you have to do is go to the admin, go to the warehouse. This is a warehouse section, and you can create a new virtual warehouse. Again, this is not a data warehouse. This is a compute infrastructure, right? So you can provide the warehouse name, and then you can define, right? Um, and then you can actually define what type of warehouse you want, standard or enterprise, and then advanced option. You have multiple auto resume, auto suspend. That means if this particular warehouse is inactive for 5 minutes, it will suspend that warehouse. You won't be charged for it anymore. And when the workload is executed, when it detects the workload being executed, it will automatically resume your warehouse. So you're not continuously charged for the warehouse if you're not using it, right? So you can set up the appropriate. This is the multi-clustering that I was talking about, minimum and the maximum clusters, standard and different clustering scaling policies, either standard or economy. We can use these virtual warehouses for machine learning purposes, for query acceleration, vector optimization. They say that. Again, it all depends on the type of workload that you plan to use for. I have already created a virtual warehouse of size small. I think this is of size small. Let me just confirm it. Yeah, so this is extra small. So this virtual warehouse is going to consume 1 Snowflake credit if I have this virtual warehouse active for 1 hour, right? So it's not that expensive, compared to the other cloud computing platforms. So again, coming back to our worksheet, this is where I created the database, and I just have to refresh it. Here is where I can see my database. It's an empty database. These are 2 different schemas of that database, very similar to other relational databases. And now if I want to create any relational table, all that I have to do is just simple, SQL, answer SQL syntax, create table. I would just say table name, for example, let's say employee. I can, plug in the columns of that table. For example, let's say employee ID of data type int. I may have employee name, probably varchar. You may have, let's say, salary. Again, just a rough example. Maybe birth date is date. So depending upon your requirements, you can have various different tables. You can have hundreds and thousands of tables in a particular database of different columns. Completely depends on your data model. All that I'm trying to do is just create a simple table. You need to refresh your Snow site and you should be able to see a brand new table employee. Obviously it's an empty table right now. If I want now, I can insert few records in that table. I'm just trying to insert two records, maybe. So and so forth. So, all right, so I'm getting error here. I have to have the semicolon to define the end of the line. And then this is going to insert two records in my table, right? And then you can, if you want, issue update statement, delete statement, you can joins, you can use subqueries, set operators, you can use system functions, aggregate functions, whatever it might be. Obviously it has its own native functions that you can use. The syntax would be a little bit different. The formatting, the parameterization of those functions would be a bit different. You can also create store procedures in Snowflake, as what we can create in any other relational databases, right? You can use a JavaScript language in the Snowflake. Pretty much like, it's a full-fledged enterprise level data hosting platform, and everything and anything that you're going to be doing on Snowflake is going to be hosted onto the Snowflake cloud, right? That's the beauty of it, which comes with heavy additional features. But again, this is how it in general looks like. You can see the execution plan, query plan for that particular Snowflake, right? You can actually view the query profile. You can look for micro partitions and optimize the performance. Um, you know, Create complex security patterns to decide who should have access to what type of data in the Snowflake. You can share that data internally and externally to the internal and external customers who may or may not have the Snowflake account. Again, huge lot of features, and you can monitor the performance and log the data. You can perform the log analytics and all that good stuff as well. So again, we are not in a position to cover up those heavy features, but again, this is how the Snowflake would look like in general. And so I was just talking about these advanced features of Snowflake. So here we have, we can pull data from various different cloud providers such as AWS, GCP, or Azure. We can migrate and store that data onto the Snowflake environment. We have Snowpipe for real-time data ingestion. We can perform time travel. We can go back in time and see what operations were performed, and we can roll back those operations and put the data back into the table. We can perform fail-safe, which is again CDP, stands for Continuous Data Protection feature in Snowflake. We have different table types in Snowflake: permanent tables, transient tables, temporary tables. Every table comes with its own features and functionality that you can pick and choose from. Zero copy cloning is a way of duplicating the table without actually replicating your actual data store into the data store. We can perform data sharing, as said, data sampling. We can schedule the tasks. It's more or less like the jobs for automation purposes. We can create inbuilt visualization right in the Snowflake. So for some basic to mid-level visualization, you don't have to use Power BI. You can actually create those visualization right from the Snowflake environment and subscribe to your customers. On the top of that, we can create streams for incremental load, and these streams are going to automatically keep a track of incremental load, and we can consume those streams and load that data into my data warehouse as a part of my incremental load. As said, we can create materialized views, secured views. We can perform data masking for security. We can create masking policies. Whereas it's in access management, we have 5-6 different accounts, like roles that you can assign. We have account admin, security admin, sys admin, user admin, org admin. So different users may have different roles. So we can create complex security patterns to decide who should have access to what data. We can have partner connect, where we have a lot of partners for Snowflake, and we can download their tools and technologies, and so on and so forth. These are just some of the most important features of Snowflake, which makes it one of the most commonly used, most popular cloud data warehouse cloud hosting platform. It's literally, a lot of companies are planning to migrate onto Snowflake because of these features, and all these features comes in a very cost effective way. You don't have to shell out a lot of monies. We can choose appropriate additions, set up appropriate virtual warehouses, and it's very easy to set up The experience is very similar to what we have been doing in any other RDBMSs. Very fast, very secure. Don't see any reason why we should not go for Snowflake, right? And then just wanted to walk you through the certification that is offered by Snowflake. So if you go onto the Snowflake website, you can actually go for the certifications. Very, very important. If you want to build up your career in the Snowflake, then this is a path that you might have to follow. They do offer various different levels of certification. You might want to start with SnowPro Core that checks your basic to mid-level understanding of the core level of Snowflake understanding. Once you're done, then you can actually go for Snowflake Advanced Architect. You may also have SnowPro Advanced Data Engineer. You have administrator or analyst or data scientist. So I said Snowflake can be used by different people of different job personas, right? Depending upon what you plan to achieve, depending upon your background and career, you can choose appropriate certification, and that would really boost up your entire career as such. But yeah, Snowflake is, in a nutshell, is one of the most cutting edge technology currently out in the market. They are very active in context to the features that they are trying to add every week, every month. They have some new feature coming up. They have a very widespread worldwide active developer community. They keep on sharing multiple different features and use cases of how to use Snowflake for a specific business challenge. And it's a big competitor for other cloud hosting platforms, specifically when it comes to Azure Synapse Analytics, or you could think of Databricks. It's a competitor for all these things, and it's primarily very, very popular because of ease to use, cost effective, high performance, and advanced features, right? Is very, very very getting very popular currently out in the market. All right, so being that said, if you guys have any questions, please do ask. I'll be open to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Swapnil, for the great presentation and your valuable information. Now I request to the audience, please pop in your questions. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. Our instructor Swapnil will answer all your questions. Swapnil, let me see if we got any questions from the audience. So there are no questions. Okay, we will give some more time. Let us know if anyone have any questions. Swapnil, I would like to know what is required to know a Snowflake training. Like, is there any prerequisites? Like, if candidate come for this training?
Well, there are no any special prerequisites. Obviously, you need to be familiar with SQL and generic cloud infrastructure. How does the cloud work? Doesn't have to be any specific cloud. It could be AWS, Azure, or GCP. But if you have a good knowledge of SQL alongside with a mix of cloud platform, basic analytical skills, it's enough for anyone to actually jump onto Snowflake. So, and basics of programming, like any programming language, object-oriented programming is also fine, because Snowflake also has a module Snowpark where we're going to be using the Python inside of a Snowflake, right? So it's again optional, depends on the business requirements, but yeah, so basics of SQL, cloud platform, and any programming knowledge is enough for anyone to jump onto Snowflake.
Okay. And Swapnil, how many hours of training is sufficient for the beginners to appear for the exam?
Um, Again, it all depends on what level you are, but in my opinion, would need at least 25 to 30 hours. Maybe might go up to 40 hours um, depending upon what features and what is your level. I would say about, let's take it about 35 to 40 hours, about a weeks of 1 week, 8 hours a day, worth of training.
All right. Okay. Okay. Mhm. So let me have a final check if we got any questions from the audience. Swapnil. I think we are done up with the questions. If anyone have any questions, you can reach us on the email. We will reach you back with all the details. Thank you, Swapnil. We have done up with the questions. And again, thank you for your time today. I have a special offer announcement. We are running a special offer on Snowflake Fundamental course and on few more courses. This is the industry's ever big discount. It is the premium discount. To know more, you can visit on our website. Me and my team will also send you the email. You can reply us back. If in case you have any friend or colleague looking for the training, you can also suggest them. I have also added my LinkedIn profile and company details. If anyone want to know more, can connect with me directly. So when it comes on upskilling and reskilling, CCS Learning Academy is designed to be your organization's secret weapon. A network of talented and passionate professional instructors are ready and waiting to work directly with you and your team. If you are new to IT or seasoned professional, we offer a wide range of courses for your needs. If you need more information, please contact us. On behalf of CCS and our instructor Swapnil, we would like to thank you for your attention on this important training session today. Hope you enjoyed the session. Looking forward to you all for joining our future webinars. Stay safe out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.